Okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
Welcome, Jules McGill.
Thank you so much. All right. I am just so grateful, Denise, that you invited me to be part of the group today, and hopefully can continue to be a part of the group and come to more of your sessions, either when I'm in New Orleans or virtually, because I always get just totally jazzed up to talk about astrology. So I definitely jumped on the opportunity to talk about 2023, because I think 2023 is a really, really exciting year for all of us that carries so much potential. And so I'm glad that every single person who's here has joined and is going to be a part of, the group of people who know about the potential of 2023 and are ready to take life by the reins, so to speak. So I think in terms of intention setting and having aspirations for 2023, that's in a sense what this year is about. It's about setting new goals and seeing ourselves going to new places in life, and just being here and talking about this and sharing space together, I think signals to the universe our intention to approach this year and the energies of this year with so much awareness and desire to take full advantage of what the universe has given us this year. So again, thank you all for being here and inviting me to share. So, in 2023, we're really stepping towards new horizons. That's what the astrology says. So as many of you may know, if you have some interest in astrology or follow the astrology of the moment, since 2021, we've been kind of in this square between Saturn and Uranus. And, not to go too far into the meanings of those particular planets, but in a sense, it was like we were in limbo between the past and the future. We were really empowered to see the things about the life that we had built that needed to change, right? Both personally and on a global level. We're looking around us and saying, okay, like this is our reality, but these are the things that need to change. These are the ways we need to progress. But Uranus, the planet of the future that was kind of giving us that inspiration to really evolve and move forward and move into the future and accept radical change. Those two planets, the past and the future, so to speak, were kind of at odds. They were digging their heels in. And so while we became really aware of needing and wanting to go new places, we were in a sense only able to do the awareness part, right? It wasn't so much like we were empowered to really take big leaps forward. So I think in 2022, we had a portion of the year where we began to feel like we were moving forward. But then at the end of 2022, we were kind of pulled back into the past again. And it's like, wait a minute, I have stuff I need to clean up. I have decisions that need to be made. I have fires that I need to put out before I really start moving into a new realm of life experience, until, before I can really start moving towards my new goals. And so the beginning of 2023 is really exciting because we're finally empowered to start moving towards those new goals. And, right now, just recently, it's been a bit hard, because we had Mars nearly at a standstill. We have Mercury retrograde. And so what many people around me are experiencing, and what you might have been experiencing, is this almost like enthusiastic mentality where these ideas are coming to mind, these visions of the future are coming to mind. You're seeing all the possibilities, hunches about different directions you want to head, new goals you might want to set, but it's kind of all stuck in our head. The physical energy isn't really empowering us to start making use of those goals necessarily yet. So if you felt stuck recently, that's okay. I say, use this moment in time for developing those visions and just daydreaming about all these places that you want to head, because soon enough, At the end of this month and at the beginning of February, the energy is really going to pick up, and we're really going to have that momentum to really start moving in the direction of these visions we're having. So it's never a time to be afraid that we're not going to at some point get that energy to really start moving forward. So when I look at the rest of the 2020s, the rest of this decade, I think 2023 is a highlight of this decade. The rest of this decade promises some really pivotal shifts, on an evolutionary level in terms of being human, right? The 3 outer planets are changing signs. And what that means is not just as a city or a country or a government, we all as humanity are really going to be feeling these shifts in energy where we're being pushed to evolve. And I think 2023 is one of those years where we can kind of focus on ourselves and really put ourselves in a better place to where we've built a life that can withstand those further shifts that we're going to have as the decade goes on. So I'm really excited about 2023, and I really want to empower everyone I speak to about 2023 to really start making those good decisions for their life. Really use this year to kind of build the foundation that you want to stand on as we go through the rest of this decade. So that was just a little bit of context about what's been going on for us and what I really want to talk most about in this conversation. And of course, the conversation can lead wherever it wants to lead. And Denise, I would like your input. But what I really had planned to talk about was what Jupiter and Saturn are doing this year. And at the end, I have a calendar that I want to share with everyone that really breaks the year down into 13 segments of time that can help you guide you through the year. And in a sense, align, the setup of your year this far in advance to make use of the energy when it's good for particular things and relax into the energy when it's better that we kind of, cut ourselves some slack or tend to the demands that might be popping up from the world around us. So before I go into Jupiter and Saturn, do you have anything else about the astrology of this moment, Denise, or your experience of it?
No, there's nothing I'd want to bring up right now. The only thing I would ask you is if people have questions, how would you like to handle that? Do you want them to hold it till the end? Do you want them to raise their hand or put it in the chat, or what works for you?
I think putting it in the chat is fine. And
Okay.
I do have my chat up. And so if I see a question and I don't answer it right away, I'm going to I'll try to get to a little bit of a stopping point where I feel it's appropriate. And then if it feels really personal or like it might not help the discussion, I'll just acknowledge it and say, let's chat about that at the end.
Okay.
That
I just
sound
want
good?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Great. So I assume we're all astrology lovers here. And, one of the things that I like to say just to get us in the mindset of astrology is that, astrology is about planning to align with the flow. Our task in life is never to control the flow, but to synchronize with it. So I think of astrology like I think of a game of jump rope. You have 2 people there, they're swinging the rope. What do? We don't jump in and exert our control over that rope. We see the rhythm, we learn it, we sway with it, and then we jump in, right? And we use it. And so in that way, astrology is learning the energy that nature is going to present to us. And just like we don't go out in 5-degree weather in a swimsuit, right? We make choices that really align with the energy of a given moment. So for this purpose, I want to talk about Jupiter and Saturn and the cosmic moves they will make this year. I think Jupiter and Saturn are really important planets to pay attention to because these planets are what we call in astrology the social planets. And when I say social, I'm speaking about society, who we are out in society, what it is that we're doing with our lives. And as an astrologer, that's something that so many people will ask you about. Can you give me guidance on my purpose? Right? And that's like a really complex question to answer because Our entire birth chart is our purpose. You know, we're both giving and receiving from the world. We are giving the world our wisdom, and we are receiving lessons that are helping us grow. So, you know, purpose is kind of a more two-way street than we generally think about it. But when most people say purpose, I think what they're talking about is, who am I out in the world? How can I feel useful? How can I present my talents? How can I feel fulfilled and live a meaningful existence? And I think looking at Jupiter and Saturn and what they're doing this year, because they're the social planets, help us see, you know, how we are growing out in the world and what we might have to offer out in the world this year. We're undergoing a really important part of our development in terms of understanding our potential and where we're going right now, because Jupiter and Saturn came together in the sky, meaning they formed a conjunction in December 2020, right on the winter solstice. So if you think of that like a new moon, right? The sun and the moon come together in the sky about every 28 days. That's a new moon. That's a reset. So that's a 28-day cycle. Well, Jupiter and Saturn come together in the sky every 20 years. So we're talking about a 20-year cycle. And if that cycle began in December 2020, we're still at the very beginning of that cycle, right? And when we talk about the new moon, one thing that we can observe about the new moon is that it's dark. You know, we can't see. We might not be able to see where that month is going yet. We might not be able to see where the seed that is planted on that new moon, what it's going to look like. And so it's much this way in terms of this Jupiter-Saturn cycle that began in 2020, because a new seed representing your life purpose out in the world was planted at that time. Now, what happens when we plant a seed? It's covered up with dirt. We don't see anything. It takes a long time, particularly when it comes to a 20-year cycle, until we're seeing that little sprout poke up above the surface. And that's what we're starting to see this year. It's like, something's happening here. This is exciting. Look, it's poking up, you know, like, so 2023 is really exciting because I think we're getting into the part of this Jupiter-Saturn cycle where we can begin to recognize and see evidence that our potential in life and in our life journey is taking us in new and exciting directions. So what's happening right now is that Jupiter is in Aries. So Jupiter actually went into Aries for a small portion of last year. And I kind of alluded to that earlier when I was saying we had kind of an exciting portion of time in 2021 that teased us a little bit and made us think, ooh, like, I think things are changing. I think we might be going back to normal life. I think I want to do this. I think I want to do that. And then, you know, with Jupiter retrograde, we got taken back out of that and had to tend to some other things or, you know, participate in other life experiences before we could really start moving ahead like we are now. But in any event, Jupiter in Aries is a very, very, very important part of this year that is lasting from today until May 16th. So let's break down what that means. Jupiter is symbolic of growth, of opportunity, of expansion, of newness. Aries, on the other hand, is a bit similar because Aries is also about newness and adding to that individuality, speed, courageousness, even selfishness, assertiveness, taking action. And so when we put the spirit of Jupiter together with the spirit of Aries, and we're saying, what does it mean when Jupiter is in Aries? I think of two words: initiating, and by that I mean new goals, new projects, new beginnings, being courageous, rushing out onto the battlefield. Initiating and individuality. By individuality, I mean being fearlessly different, being unique, being authentic. That's what we're really encouraged to do during this time. This is a real kickstart right now. We're overcoming a lot of inertia where we felt kind of stuck for a few years, like, are we really getting anywhere? And we're blasting through that hurdle. We're blasting through that wall. And so once we get into February, like I said, I mean, our physical energy can be a little bit sluggish right now. We can feel like we're moving through the mud or through quicksand. But once we get into February, we're moving full steam ahead. And so Jupiter is invigorating. It's encouraging fast, decisive, bold movement forward for all of us. So again, this might be a totally new direction. You might be setting totally new goals, or you might be picking up on something that you had the inspiration for in the middle of 2021 and saying, I can finally move ahead with this now. So with the path clear for movement, we are really encouraged to take leaps of faith and to start stepping forward. The Sun and Jupiter will conjoin in April. And we are going to be moving. I mean, that's another blast forward. Just put it that way. That's another blast forward. So pay attention to what's happening around the beginning of April, because the meetings that you have, the people that you meet, the projects that you're involved in, the ideas that you have, those carry incredible value and say something to you about where you're headed and how you can better explore and pursue your very unique and special purpose in life. So I want to go through all of the zodiac signs and give people kind of a flavor of where they might be headed this year. But one thing that I want to say is that Jupiter in Aries is very invigorating. And so what's happened for me, and I think what's happening for a lot of people, is we are seeing potential in a lot of different directions. So my encouragement to you is, the only mistake we can make, maybe there are two, setting our sights too low. Don't do it. Think big, be weird, be unique, be different, make your aims as high as you possibly can while still believing in them. But one thing we don't want to do wrong is having too many goals at one time. Because when May comes, the energy slows down. And we're going to talk more about that. But the most important thing we can do in the beginning of the year is really be bold and courageous and set our sights high, while being aware that when the energy slows down, we're going to be asked to follow through on every one of those goals that we set. And in order to manifest, we need clarity. We can't be telling the universe like, oh, I want to grow and change and I want a life of abundance. It's like, okay, no, what are you doing? Can we narrow it down? Can we, if you have 6 new goals that come to mind, what are the 2 most important? What is the most foundational? What if you accomplish it this year, sets the stage for you to then pursue those other goals later. So it's important that we pay attention to all those goals that are coming to mind, write them down, and then choose which ones are most important and kind of save the rest for later and have faith. Like there will be a time when I can come back around and start adding to my plate. So let's look at, I had made a slide here. All right. Can you see it?
It says screen sharing, but I'm not seeing anything like a presentation.
Okay. I think you're frozen. Let me see my, okay, there it goes, I think. Yeah?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So this is just a little bit about Jupiter and Saturn that I already talked about. But let's talk about Jupiter first. So as I was saying, Jupiter relates to this growth, development of purpose, new goals, new aspirations, new territory and experiences in particular areas of life. It's inspiring us to learn, to read, to gain mastery over particular topics. Now, when I'm saying some area of life, particular areas of life experience, particular topics, I'm about to show you what that means for you. Jupiter also rewards us for helping others, right? So if we're looking at your horoscope and it's saying, okay, Jupiter is in the house that speaks to therapy. Well, that might mean that you are receiving therapy, that you're getting therapy, that you're working with a coach to develop your life purpose or whatever, issues that you have in your life. Or it might mean you have an opportunity to begin giving particular sorts of therapy to other people. What is your skill? How can you help other people in a therapeutic type way? So when you look at these topic areas I'm talking about, don't limit yourself to thinking, oh, this is what I need to be out getting or receiving. This is also about what we can give. Jupiter uplifts, it expands, it makes us enthusiastic. And when we follow what Jupiter is telling us at a given time, so when we're looking at what area of my life is Jupiter affecting right now, when we follow that, when we set goals in that area of life, Jupiter says, yes, Jupiter wants to meet you halfway. It brings you fortune, luck, opportunity, benefits when you are aligning your goals with what it wants to support you in doing at this time. So I see your comment, Lisa. So I'm going to go through all of the signs and I'm not going to speak to each one. I would really like everyone to just read their rising sign and the areas of life that Jupiter will be affecting this year. I could only do 6 per slide, so I will scroll it to the next slide. Just read this, just think about it for now. That calendar that I can circulate at the end will have all of this information and more in it. So feel free to take a screenshot if you would like to. But again, I can circulate a written copy of this information when we get done today. So again, these are the areas of life for each rising sign that Jupiter is helping us to set new goals, reach new territory, explore, learn about, help other people with. All right, so if anyone has any questions about the application of Jupiter and this idea of growth and expansion and an opportunity in these areas of life, we can talk about it at the end, and how that applies to your particular chart. You kind of have to think astrologically. It's like if Jupiter is telling you, I'm going to have growth, opportunity, expansion, and you're talking about taxes, like what the heck, right? Well, maybe there's some sort of tax relief that you're able to find this year, right? Maybe you get a bigger tax return this year that you normally get. So we kind of have to think astrologically, and I did it this way so that I can cover more ground than, me going through and covering every single zodiac sign verbally, because I have quite a few things I wanted to share with you guys today. So. All righty, I'm going to stop my share. Okay, Lisa asks, does it affect your rising sign or the sign Jupiter is in? It affects your rising sign. So we already kind of talked about the effects of Jupiter in Aries, right? That's that individuality, that inspiration, all of those characteristics that we talked about before. That's what Jupiter in Aries is giving to all of us. Now we're looking at our rising sign and we're saying, okay, where does Jupiter in Aries fall in our chart? So if I'm a Sagittarius, Jupiter in Aries is affecting this area of my life. So Lisa, since you're saying Saturn and Scorpio, so I'm assuming you're a Cancer rising. So you would want to pay attention to Cancer. Okay, good deal. So we're looking at our rising sign here. Good question. Thank you. All right. So what we were just talking about is Jupiter in Aries, which lasts until May 16th. Now, we have another cosmic move coming up May 16th when Jupiter moves from Aries into Taurus. And I talked a little bit about this before. We go from wild, dynamic fire energy with Jupiter in Aries to fixed, solid, fertile earth energy. So Jupiter will be in Taurus from May 16th of this year through May 25th of next year. So we have an entire year of Jupiter moving through Taurus. Taurus is a very fertile sign. So when I see Jupiter leaving Aries, a placement that inspires us all to move in exciting new directions for ourselves, following our inspiration, Jupiter goes into Taurus and now says, okay, here's the fertile soil for you to do the thing, right? The excitement has worn off. The enthusiasm of new beginnings has worn off. It's time for follow through. You have a whole year where you are expected to nurture, cultivate, tend to whatever new goals, new directions you started going in during the beginning of this year. And that's why I said we need to narrow down what it is that's most important for us. Because when Jupiter goes into Taurus, Jupiter wants to help us. It's like, yes, this is good soil. Like, what have you planted here? Right? But like the farmer, you have to show up day after day after day and have this consistent, reliable action that really supports whatever seeds that you have planted in as much growth as they're capable of. Jupiter in Taurus can really set us up for abundance. That's how I see it. So I'm like, and Taurus is a sign of longevity, right? So we are setting ourselves up for reliable returns, very consistent results. If we're able to do that follow through during the year period that lasts from May of this year until May of next year. So, in summary, it's like, yeah, Jupiter in Taurus following Jupiter in Aries, that's exciting. That's so exciting for drumming up new inspiration, ideas, enthusiasm, momentum, getting our visions off the ground. And then we have a full year where we have to settle down, show up. So, Jupiter in astrology is considered the, planet of luck and opportunities. And Denise, I know if you've listened to Sam, Sam has an abundance of Jupiter energy going for him. And he never hesitates to say, Jupiter doesn't give windfalls. Luck is preparation meets opportunity. We have to give effort. We have to give that follow through. Jupiter is a planet that will meet you halfway. Jupiter is a planet that wants to confirm you. It wants to say yes, but we have to do the action of saying, this is what I want Jupiter to say yes to. This is the effort I'm willing to give. And then Jupiter is able to respond to that. So, when Jupiter goes into Taurus, two things happen. The first is what we've already been speaking about, right? Jupiter in Taurus helps us, or is asking us to do that follow through work. It wants us to show up every day and nurture whatever goals we have set at the beginning of 2023. We're making those decisions now and we're following through. Also, in addition, when Jupiter goes into Taurus, Jupiter is affecting a new area of your chart, meaning Jupiter may add other new goals to the plate. More new areas of life Jupiter is helping you expand and grow in. So let's look at the charts again and see what it means for you when Jupiter goes into Taurus. So this is for each person. You're going to see a new description of the house or area of life that Jupiter is going to be affecting from May of 2023 until May of 2024. Nadia says this is exciting. I'm glad someone else is excited but me. I'm so pumped for 2023. Lisa said, yep, sounds about right for me. And that's good, right? Because if Jupiter wants to say yes, and Jupiter is help meeting us halfway, then we really do well to kind of align our goals where with Jupiter is present and really wants to help us. Oh, that's cool. So Reverend Raymond says, this is affirming a lot of messages that I got from a year ahead tarot reading last night. Wow, so cool. Yeah, Nadia too. Oh, so exciting. All right, guys. So again, all that information will be in the calendar that I can send to you or share with you at the end. So moving on from Jupiter, I said today I wanted to talk mostly about what Jupiter and Saturn are doing this year. The planet Saturn also speaks to growth. It also speaks to maturing, to moving forward, right, in our life and that maturation process. But the flavor, Jupiter and Saturn are very different. And I kind of boiled it down in a new catchphrase that I hope kind of sticks. I've never heard it anywhere. So Denise, I'll be interested if you've heard this before, but Jupiter inspires, Saturn requires, right? So where Jupiter comes along and it makes us say, oh, I want to grow. I want to do new things. I want to learn. I want to be more. I want to do more. I want to serve more. Jupiter kind of like tempts us and attracts us in the direction by inspiration. Saturn is totally different. Saturn doesn't inspire, it requires. Saturn shows up in our life and is like, hey, you need to grow in this area of life. You need to mature in how you approach this subject. You need to be more disciplined in this arena of life experience. So Saturn often kind of pops up from the outside and shows us where we really need to be more firm, be more disciplined, be more mature in how we approach life. Now, Saturn typically will kind of tap us on the shoulder first. And it's like, hey, you don't really exercise, do you? And you eat all this fried food and you shouldn't do that, and you have like moments where it's like, yeah, I don't feel my best. I think that I should make some changes. And, Saturn has a way of kind of coming up and tapping us on the shoulder and planting a seed of where we need to grow and mature and be more firm and disciplined. But when we don't answer that call, it gets harder. Like Saturn continues to like up the ante and make things harder and harder and harder and heavier, like for instance, a health issue pops up. And it's like, actually, yeah, you have to go on blood pressure medication now, so, Saturn will kind of try to show us gently where it needs us to mature. And when we don't answer the call, it gets louder and louder and louder and more demanding and heavy until we really don't have any choice. So I think it's really important to make friends with Saturn. It's like, okay, I'm willing. Like, what is life showing me? Where is life showing me I need to firm up? So a lot of times Saturn pops up as, like I said, external demands upon us, responsibilities. You could have, a mom who's in bad health who you have to start caring for, or, your children are getting to the age where they're doing sports and you're having to ride them all over town. I mean, it looks different for all of us, but it also depends on what area of life Saturn is affecting at a given time. And something, I hate to get too excited about Saturn because Saturn is Saturn and he demands a lot of us, but Saturn has been in Aquarius since March 2020. We all know that date, don't we? March 2020. So whatever issues, whatever challenges, whatever hardships Saturn kind of ushered into your life during the COVID years, they're about to change. So the challenges will still pop up somewhere else, but those challenges that kind of the COVID years represent to you, now, whether that's health related, pandemic related, whatever it was that kind of flavored those years of your life, those challenges are about to pass for us. Our discipline and our responsibility to be more mature is passing to a new area of life, and that's in March of this year. So March 2023, Saturn moves into Pisces, and this means we are doing our Saturn work in a new area of life. So this means a few things. Saturn will be in Pisces. What does that mean? What does it mean when the significance of Saturn meets the significance of Pisces? That's an interesting question to answer, because in a sense, Saturn and Pisces are a bit antithetical. They can be kind of opposite in some way. So whereas Saturn normally pressures us to create order, to create structure in the physical, material plane of existence, the Pisces archetype is really more connected with the invisible world. We're talking about the subtle plane, the unseen. Pisces signifies emotions, our creative instinct, energy fields, right? We can't see those. That is part of the physical plane, but we can't see it. That's what Pisces relates to. Pisces also relates to like the collective consciousness, right? Our invisible connectivity to everything, to the earth, to other people. And so when I see Saturn moving into Pisces, my interpretation of that as an astrologer is we really need to firm up our focus on the unseen part of our lives, on spirituality, on our emotional well-being, and our mental health. So, when I think about the last 3 years, I had a therapist who told me once in my own self-development work, when you're running from a bear, you don't cry. Your adrenaline is going. You're running. You're being chased. You're in self-preservation mode, right? And there's been some of that these past few years. But when we're safe, when we have a moment to rest and the bear isn't chasing us anymore, we collapse, we cry, we experience grief. That's the moment where we have the time to sit still and deal with all of the invisible things that bear chase caused. And so I think it's going to be so important during the time Saturn is in Pisces. And again, that begins in March and that will continue on and off through 2026. These are years when we really want to adopt a regimen. We really want to commit to inner healing, to spiritual connection, to emotional processing, and I think the fact that we're all gathered here means we're already doing that. We already know how to make friends with Saturn in this area of life. So our work over these next few years is really dedicating time daily to the practices that really sustain our well-being. I also think Saturn in Pisces is really heavy on the earth. The earth is a living being. We're talking about Pisces, the collective consciousness. We're all connected. We're all connected to each other. We're all connected to the earth. And so I've challenged myself to, mature in terms of my awareness of waste, and particularly Saturn and Pisces, because Pisces is often related to water in the oceans. I've committed myself to really protecting water as a sacred resource. That's one thing that I am promising to the earth that I'm going to be more aware of. And I think over the next few years, we're going to see more and more rules related to water. This is a reality in some areas of the world already. In the United States, I think of California, but I think this is going to become a bigger and bigger deal. And what did I say? Like, Saturn asks us to go willingly, or we're required. And so I think, this Saturn and Pisces years is where we're really starting to take much more seriously our connectivity, our vibe. Other people feel our vibe, right? So how can we clean up our vibe? The earth feels our vibe. How can we clean up the earth, right? Like it's about putting some sort of discipline to these more intangible areas of life. So I hope that makes sense. But that's just kind of some global themes that I see happening over the next few years. But, now let's talk about, what does Saturn and Pisces mean for your particular birth chart? And, Pisces is there in some house of your birth chart. And because Pisces is a mutable sign, a very flexible sign, a very compassionate sign, it means there's some area of your life where you can be very vulnerable, where you are very sensitive, right? And that can be a gift. It can be a curse. We can also have very weak boundaries in that area of life. There is some place in every single one of our lives where we really have weak boundaries, and we really need to firm ourselves up and start taking care of ourselves, setting proper limitations for ourselves, whether that's like in our personal life or in our relationships with other people, depending on where Pisces affects you in your chart. So, in these areas, being disciplined and responsible and knowing when enough is enough can naturally be kind of hard to us. And now we have Saturn insisting on the opposite, right? So this is kind of a critical period. It's like Saturn is testing our commitment to firm ourselves up in the very place where we might have the most trouble being firm. So let's kind of look at what that might mean for each of us. I'm going to share my PowerPoint again. All right. So I was kind of already speaking to this, but I can go through it again. Saturn kind of slows our rhythm in some area of life in order to focus our attention and force us to mature there. It concentrates us toward a particular area of life, which you will see in your horoscope I'm about to show, by presenting new duties, responsibilities, and obligations there, right? It's like, if my mother's having health problems and I have to show up there, what is this telling me symbolically, right? Like, how can I read into this situation and see like how I might have needed to mature? And this situation is just kind of pointing that out to me. Saturn requires and helps us refine ourselves, develop better organization, boundaries. That's another key word for Saturn, is organization. So you might get better organized in the area of life that Saturn is developing right now. For me, all right, I'm self-employed and Saturn's going into my 8th house of taxes. Taxes have always been hard for me because I have to be my own accountant. I have to do so much work, not just to do my work. And I have 2 different careers, but like the tax issue is something else. And like paying ahead quarterly wasn't as important, but I'm doing a little bit better now. And I'm going to get penalties if I don't just step up to the plate and be more organized and be more responsible. So organization is another way Saturn can really help us if we're just willing and if we'll just say yes to where Saturn is asking for it. Because where we don't say yes, what will Saturn do? Well, those tax penalties are going up, right? Because it's more important now. Saturn gives us a more serious, practical, disciplined approach, right? We can become, sometimes there's like more distance and we become more objective about things. Less subjectivity, less emotionality. So if Saturn is affecting an area of your life that has to do with relationships, you might suddenly become a little bit more serious or withdrawn with certain types of people, right? If it's going through your house of family, it's like, wait a minute, I need to put some distance there. I need to be more objective. I need to stop giving emotional responses and kind of like protecting my own boundaries. Saturn constricts, contracts, and it narrows our outlook towards certain people, ideas, or things. It gives us a little bit of ability to be more critical, right? So here, look for your rising sign again. These are the areas of life that Saturn is going to be asking you to mature and develop better boundaries and be more disciplined and be more firm for the next 3 years. All right, guys. So again, that will be on the calendar that I share. And I want to kind of look at the calendar together now. And this is the first year I've ever done a calendar. I'm really excited to share it. And I'm hoping that next year this is a physical product that will maybe be in some of your hands. All right. So do you see it? All right. I'm not sure what it looks like in terms of sizing on your end. So here is the calendar. And the introduction has a number of pages. This page is really more about helping you use the calendar. Let's say you were to get this calendar and you're not in a workshop with me where we can talk about the layout. But what I've done is a bit different than I've ever seen in a calendar before. So I have divided 2023 into 13 segments. There are no traditional calendar months to this calendar. So I made this calendar for a workshop that I did on Thursday. So I started the beginning of the year on the 12th, which I might have done anyway, because that's when Mars turned direct. But what I've done is I have divided 2023 into 13 segments of time, unequal segments of time that to me more reflect like consistent energetic themes that match a particular segment of time, right? When we turn the calendar page, because it's January 31st and now we're on the 1st, what does that mean? Energetically speaking, typically nothing. It's just a new calendar page. I want changing from one calendar page to the next calendar page on my calendar to feel like, new start, new themes, new energy. There's a different vibe that's going on during this part of the year. And some parts of the year are only a few weeks, and some kind of span 3 different months. I think the longest segment of the year was about 6 weeks. But for each segment of the year, I've given a mantra that, you could put on a Post-it note and use as a bookmark, put it on your refrigerator, put it on your mirror, just somewhere that you can see it every day. And you don't have to use mine. I tried to align my mantra with what was going on in that period of time, or kind of helps us get ready for the next period of time. So, you can kind of use what's written here, or you can use that as like a template or as a starting point for developing a mantra that feels better or more resonant for you. And then I have a journal prompt if anyone, likes to journal. And then there's a description of the period of time. I also do monthly emails. And in those monthly emails, I will cover additional dates that relate to, particular segments of time that aren't written here, because, you can only do so much. Like, I intended this to be like a broad level overview, and my monthly emails are a little bit more specific. So what I did is, this is created for printing if you would like to print it for yourself. I did a notes page. And so if you were going to print it, I would encourage you maybe to print out 13 copies of the notes page and insert one behind every segment of the year that you can, either use for the journal prompt. If you want to subscribe to my emails, you can use it to write down like additional notes of what I'm saying for these periods of time. So I do have some people on my mailing list who print out my monthly emails, and I realized they were like highlighting stuff and all of this. And I'm like, okay, can we do this in a more, structured way where you can keep all the information together? So, the beginning of the calendar has all of the horoscopes, right? So I showed you those horoscopes, and it has a written description of Jupiter, Saturn, these are the things that we've talked about. And then for each sign, I have, basically what you've seen on my slides. What are Jupiter's effects? And then what areas of life is it applying to during particular segments of the year? So thank you guys for your feedback and encouragement. I poured my heart into this thing. And what's so funny is that, yes, these are rising signs, Nadia. So I was doing a workshop this past week and kind of set out. I was like, well, I'm just going to do a little calendar, right? And then I totally got obsessed, and it turned into a different project entirely. But I'm excited because I hope that next year I can develop this even further. And I'm always open to suggestions. I had a thought I could put like a mandala for coloring for every segment of time. That's just kind of makes it more fun, more interactive. So if anybody has any ideas, I'm always welcome to things that I can add to this, to make it better. Because I feel like there's a lot of astrology calendars out there, but I haven't seen one divided up like this. And I'm really trying to make it unique in my own. So, Lisa asks if you can sign up for my emails. I would love for you to. I would so much love for you to. I do not send junk. I send typically one email on the first of the month. And even though my calendar doesn't break the year up that way, it creates like a regularity, because a lot of people are like, it's the first, I know I'm getting this email. So I kind of have to stick to that first of the month in terms of the emails for now. But I would love for all of you to sign up for my emails. My website is thecosmicgem.com, gem as in like a gemstone, or short for Gemini, because my sun sign is Gemini. And if you scroll to the bottom of the page, like on every subpage of my website, there will be a little entry form where you can just sign up for the website there. So I think we still have quite a bit more time left. If I were to speak to any other part of the year, I would probably talk about Venus retrograde, but you might want to say, I don't have anything prepared to talk about that. So you might just want to wait until that time, comes closer, and we can, speak to Jupiter and Saturn, or any feedback that you have, Denise, or any other ideas that you have about the meaning of Jupiter and Saturn's movements this year.
The only thing I would add about Saturn, and this is based on some calls I've been getting in the last week or two.
Mm-hmm.
So before Saturn goes into Pisces, we still have until March 6th where it has been for a couple years. And so what I'm hearing from a lot of people is really kind of an escalation of crisis in that part of their life.
Mm.
For example, I talked with a client, several days ago who has had Saturn going through her seventh house of committed relationships. Well, there's been underlying problems for 2 years that have been swept under the rug, swept under the rug, swept under the rug. So guess what? Saturn's sort of demanding, hey, you got to fix this, right?
Yeah.
Either end it or change it, but this can't go on. And so I heard one astrologer talk about January and February as being kind of like you've been in school with Saturn and the final exam is coming up and now you're doing the cramming, right? So anything you didn't learn in the last 2 weeks, guess what? You've got to get it all done in 2 months. So if you're feeling a lot of pressure with that right now in some area of your life where Saturn's been, yeah.
Definitely. I second that 100%. I think on my calendar, I wrote like Saturn goes out with a bang or like exclamation marks, it's kind of like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I've been experiencing that myself. I feel like I've really kind of tried to answer the call and like be there, but I still feel that like some of those issues are kind of like creeping back in. It's like, hey, no, you need to say more, you need to do more, you need to do more figuring out. This isn't over yet. It's not fixed. It's not done. It's not, there's more you can do over the next 3 months. So for sure, or 2 months. So March 7th, I think, is when Saturn goes. So yeah, that's such a good point.
And then, we're not gonna talk about it here, but in March, there's also, 2 other huge changes. So March is going to be a massive month for change. Mars will finally leave Gemini and Pluto will move out of Capricorn. So, I've just told everybody like, March and May are kind of the 2 months where I'd schedule yourself as lightly as possible because there's just going to be so much stuff going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you mind talking about the Venus and Leo? Iz says she'd love to hear your thoughts if you've got anything. I do have the dates handy if you want me to share that.
Sure.
So Venus is going to move into Leo on June 6th. And normally Venus only spends like a month to 6 weeks in a sign, but because she's going to go retrograde in Leo, she'll be there for several months. So between June 6th and October 8th, she will be in the sign of Leo. And the retrograde period is going to be between July 22nd and September 3rd. So if you want to mark your calendar for that, particularly if Leo happens to be like your rising sign, your midheaven, your 7th house or your 4th house, then this is going to be a really big deal for you. But I'll let you share your thoughts, Jules.
Sure. Well, we, or at least I often associate Venus with pleasure and what makes us happy and our values, and those things go together, in my opinion, because it's like, if we don't value something anymore, then continuing to take part in it, continuing to pursue it is like really falling flat, so as we grow, our values really change. What we're attracted to, what we're drawn towards really changes. And so Venus goes retrograde relatively infrequently, only every 18 months. And so those Venus retrogrades are really pivotal times where we might, be encouraged to take note, right, of the things that no longer bring us happiness, that we don't value anymore, and not to say, I guess I framed that in a more negative way, but it's like, kind of like wiping the windshield clean, right? You've been on the road, you've been on a road trip, the windshield is all like, filled with bugs. And it's like, okay, let me like wipe this windshield clean and get a better view of what it is I'm aiming for. What are my values? And I think Venus retrograde is a time where we're really supported in getting some clarity around how our desires and our values have shifted over time, and then going and taking some sort of corrective action so that, what we're putting our time into reflects the changes in values that we've had since the last Venus retrograde, but particularly since Venus moves in 8-year cycles. I encourage everyone to think about how they've changed since August of 2015, because this is really about this 8-year segment of time that began in August of 2015, right? So it's like, when you think about that segment of your life, okay, what has happened since August 2015? What are the primary relationships that have covered that segment of your life? What were your values back in 2015? What did you think was important back then? What brought you so much happiness, back at that time? Because at that time, we kind of set a lot of goals or aim in a particular direction. And now all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, a lot has happened. And I kind of need to come back to the drawing board and get clear over how I've changed over the last 8 years and do whatever adjustments are needed. And I heard an astrologer say one time that they wish that every couple had to go through a complete Venus cycle before they were to get married, which isn't always realistic, but it makes sense, because it's like, wait a minute, over 8 years, our values changed so much. And how do we confront the moment in time where we've both had so much change, and we need to say, how do we adjust? Like, how do I account for the fact that you're a different person now? How do you account for the fact that I'm a different person now? What do we still enjoy together? What do we not? So while Venus retrograde really is personal and it's about our own values and what we enjoy, it's like, on the other hand, that really affects our intimate relationships with other people, right? Because we have to be aligned, or it's like, we're not vibing with those people anymore, whether it's our friends or our family members or our coworkers or whoever it is we're making the choice to, intimately involve ourselves with. Venus retrograde can kind of be a time where we need to go and reevaluate all of that. But I think this Venus retrograde has some really positive potential about it. And I mean, all the planetary alignments do, right? Like, we have to say yes to everything, because every astrological alignment that happens is helping us grow. It has some meaning, it has significance and purpose, but I think this Venus retrograde in particular really encourages our individuality. But on the other hand, it's very fortunate. I think there are very good outcomes that are possible, because Venus makes an aspect both with Uranus, which is very like freedom seeking. It's very like individualistic. It needs a lot more room. It needs to kind of like break free of constriction. But Jupiter is also going to make some powerful alignments to Venus, which tells me, like, if you're coming from a heartfelt place, if you are in your truth, if you are being authentic and you are doing it from a loving place, Jupiter's going to say yes. And the outcome of you making those adjustments could be really amazing and fortunate, right? And so, like, even where we might feel a little bit timid to like voice ourselves or to go in and make those corrections or adjustments where they need to be made, I think the outcome could be really, really beautiful, So I think it's a really nice Venus retrograde. One thing that I've experienced for myself is that, when Venus is moving backwards, because Venus is kind of connected to pleasure and enjoyment, sometimes things just don't sit right with me. The foods I normally like don't taste as good. It's like, I kind of feel like dissatisfied just as a baseline. And that might not be true for everyone, but it's definitely been true for me. I have Venus on one of the angles of my chart, opposite Pluto. So like when I feel Venus, like I feel Venus really intensely. So, you know, I kind of just have to be okay with that, and kind of sit in that feeling for, Venus retrograde. And I say, hey, like, if that's the case, Venus retrograde is a great time for willingly giving up something that might have got out of balance in our life. So is that, fried foods? Is it alcohol? Is it social media? Is it online dating? Like, what is it that seems to get like out of balance? And, sacrificing that almost for 40 days or doing some sort of cleanse or detox. It's like, if I'm already kind of not going to feel satisfied from the things that I normally enjoy, like what are those things that, I might not be in balance with, and that's a good time that you can take corrective action towards those things too. So Lisa asks, it depends on where your Venus is, right? And yes, that's true. But kind of what I was talking about are the general meanings of Venus retrograde. So there will be another area of your life that Venus will impact during that time. I didn't do horoscopes for those, so I don't really have anything that speaks to that. So what I was kind of sticking to were the general meanings of Venus retrograde that, of course, won't all be true for every single one of us, but that's kind of the flavor of Venus retrograde for me. What do you think, Denise? Do you have any more new ideas to add? Or
Yeah, is asked where will Uranus be? Uranus is staying in Taurus for the next couple of years. So it's just sort of moving really slowly in the place where it's been. One of the things I really love about this Venus retrograde being in Leo is, if you had heavy planets or you had angles of your chart in the fixed signs, particularly Saturn Aquarius, but also Uranus and Taurus, or lots of things in Scorpio, lots of things in Aquarius. Aquarius, Leo, Scorpio, Taurus.
mm-hmm.
I feel like the Venus retrograde might be able to sort of bring some healing to whatever has been really hard for the last few years, because eclipses were in the fixed signs, Saturn was in Aquarius. And so people had like a lot of losses, a lot of, unpleasant experiences. And so I feel like Venus coming in through there is maybe a little bit of cleanup, healing, reconciliation, and that can be really positive. On just a fun personal side, I've known a number of people who during Venus retrogrades have exes come back into the picture. That happened to me last year when Venus was in Capricorn, which was my rising sign. Funny enough, a guy that I'd broken up with 8 years ago knocks on the door, right?
8 years.
Yep. 8
wow.
years. On our YouTube channel. So I'm recording this presentation today and I'm going to put it on the YouTube channel. If you haven't watched it, I actually did a presentation about Venus retrogrades last year. Now, I specifically looked at some issues that have to do with Capricorn, but I also talked about some general Venus retrograde stuff. So that is free on the YouTube channel if you want to go back and look at it. But yeah, I'm excited about the Venus retrograde in Leo. Kind of like with Aries, Leo is a sign that's very warm and generous and wants to have fun and wants to assert itself. And so I think this is a really fun, place for Venus to be spending several months.
Yeah, Leo's my rising sign, so I'm pretty stoked about it. I mean, you can't be mad at Venus in your rising sign for all that time.
A lot of people who have Venus in their rising signs do things like get a new hairstyle, get a new appearance, something that sort of refreshes and rejuvenates your personal style and appearance, or so that's kind of a fun thing if she's in your rising sign.
Yeah.
Gemini.
Oh, somebody else is a Gemini with Leo rising too. Ah, that's exciting. I've read a couple. Go ahead.
No, you go.
I have a number of clients who are the same, and I just love it. Venus is
I was
in
looking through my
Gemini.
notes to see if there was anything else, really big other than Pluto. I think that's the big news of the year. And of course, even though Pluto's moving out of Capricorn, it's going to come back in. It's going to like be going back and forth between Capricorn and Aquarius for a couple of years. So, I think if you guys have any questions, otherwise, I just want to say, Jules, what a fabulous job you did for us today. Thank you so much. And I'm so glad the timing worked out in that, my reaching out to you, that you had been working on this calendar already and were available to be with us today. It's been fantastic. I knew you
Thank
were
you.
good, but really you've blown me away.
Oh, thank you so much. I was so excited to get your text about doing this. So I'm so blessed to be here. I'm so blessed that we know each other now and, can work together. And I would love to be part of the group in further ways going forward. I don't see where I can attach a document either here. So
Shall we just each email you at Jules at the Cosmic Gem then to get the calendar? Is that the easiest thing to do?
Yeah, that would be wonderful. So it's Jules, Jules, at thecosmicgem.com. And I would love to share the calendar with you. And
Now, are you okay with us sharing it with other people, or would you prefer, because would you rather it get broad expansion, or do you want us to just like hold it tight and, keep it?
I would love for you to share it.
Okay.
I would love for you to share
I thought
it.
people might want to know is like, can I give this to my friend? Can I,
Yeah, I would really, really love that. And, I would love to have people sign up for my emails too. So if you share it with anyone, I would really love for you to have them, suggest that they come to my website and sign up for those emails so they can supplement, kind of those general ideas that are in the calendar. Because as you know, when you're an astrologer and it's like December and you're looking at the entire year ahead, when those months come up, I'm going to be like, whoa, I didn't even look at that. I wasn't even thinking about that yet. Right. So there will be so much more to say as I get, time to look at the year more acutely month by month. So I would love for them to have the calendar and be on my mailing list so I can kind of supplement the ideas that I put there. And yeah, I would love emails from all of you. I would love to know how the year is panning out for you. If you want to work together in any way, I would love that. And yeah, I'm so blessed to be here. So thank you.
You do like personal consultations. And then do I recall correctly that you also have done a lot of work with relationships, like relationship synastry? Are you still doing that?
Yeah, I love relationship work. Like that's my jam. I'm really passionate about relationships, about synastry. In fact, I'll be in New Orleans in March because I'm doing a bachelorette party.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, I love doing like fun workshops and presenting astrology to people who really don't have a very good idea about what it is or how to use it. So bachelorette parties are fun. And usually for those, I go more into like love and relationships and compatibility and sexuality and stuff like that. So yeah, I love that type of work too.
Yeah. And that, that's something as we've talked about is kind of not my jam. So I love saying, hey, here's somebody who's really good for that stuff. If you want to do anything while you're here in March, give me a shout,
Okay.
See what's, what availability is around.
What's the physical location you guys are going to use?
So just off of West End Boulevard on the lakefront, but towards Metairie on Lake Avenue, there's a metaphysical shop there that's called MRC Treasures. Mm-hmm. It's been there for 10 years and I literally never knew about it until December. I met a woman who is a sound healer and an energy worker, and she told me about it. And so I went and visited them, and it turns out the owner is a nurse, like I'm a nurse, but he's also a medium. And so he's had this business for 10 years, and like they have a lot of like gemstones, jewelry, incense, candles, all the things you would expect like at a botanica shop in the quarter. But, it's in Metairie, it's super convenient, parking, etc. They also just added on the ground floor of this building a classroom workshop space that he says can seat up to 70 people. They're still kind of building it out, so it's not pretty yet, but you know, there's bathrooms, there's air conditioning, there's heating, there's, you know, Wi-Fi, all that stuff. So we're gonna have our first meetup there February 25th. And then he also has lots of other events. There's classes on his calendar. So if you wanted to, you know, offer a class there or something, you could. Every Saturday, he has people in the store doing readings, a variety of like psychic mediums, tarot readers, angel readers, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I was really excited to find it. And like I said, thrilled that he's willing to sort of give our group a permanent space.
Heck yeah.
And they don't sell food or drink. There might be a vending machine upstairs, but you can bring in your own. So if you want to have coffee, if you want to have snacks. So yeah, that's what it's called, MRC Treasures.
Sweet. I'm gonna look into it. That's amazing. Really cool. Well, thanks
Anyone
for
else have
sharing.
questions before we? No? Well, thank you all for joining us. It'll probably be tomorrow or Monday before I get the YouTube video loaded. And please do send an email to Jules at thecosmicgym.com for the calendar. And you can sign up for her mail list on the website. And I hope to see those of you that are in New Orleans or in the metro area on February 25th at MRC Treasures to talk about the 12 houses and what they mean. So thanks, Jules.
Yay.
Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.